everyone, welcome to Artist Talks. I'm your host, Juliana Forero, and today we're going to explore the fascinating world of botanical art. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming three of the members of the Tropical Botanical Artists. Their exhibition, Pollinators, is on view at Bailey Contemporary Arts West Gallery. So welcome to Donna Torres, Margie Bauer, and Leo Hernandez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leo, let's get started with you. I know it seems that you're the expert on pollination. So can you explain to us what is pollination and how is relevant to South Florida?
It's very important, but one thing on the crops that are planted here during the winter, actually, they use importer bees because there's just not sufficient around to actually pollinate those crops. As far as the rest of our wild flora, the main reason we have a problem with the amount of pollinator is because just simply lack of habitat. Where we have built the city used to be the high ground where we had pine flatwoods and tropical hardwood hammocks, and those are being mostly eliminated. So eliminating them, we're also eliminating the pollinators.
And you develop, the Tropical Botanical Artists, you develop the exhibition Pollinators. Can you share what was the thought, the background story for planning that exhibition?
Well, we had tried to concentrate in most of the exhibition that we had had in the past on things that correlate to native flora on the South Florida area. So doing one on pollinator just work out perfectly, with our intent.
And I know that as the group, you like to focus on South Florida. So are there any specific pollinators or specific plants relationship pollinators and plants that is specific to South Florida?
Oh, definitely. The flora in South Florida had a lot more to do with the Bahamas, Cuba, and the rest of the Caribbean islands that actually had to do with the rest of the continental United States. We had some plants down here, like, let's say, trees like live oak, some of the ilex and so forth, which are continental. But then when you get into mahogany, gumbo limbo, most of the flora that you find on the Keys, and they used to find on the ridge from just about where the Miami River is, all the way into Everglades National Park, and which is mostly gone. It used to be all Caribbean flora. And a lot of some of the butterflies and other pollinators that we find in Southeast Florida, you find down on the island, but you don't find, as you go past, let's say, the Palm Beaches.
And have you seen any of the relationship being affected? Are there any of these pollinators being extinct or of some of these relationships? I assume, like what you mentioned earlier, there is a lot of change because of urban development. What I found fascinating on the exhibition is like there's so many, each of the artworks is a different story, it's a different relationship between the pollinator and the plant. So I'm actually curious to see if some of these are actually very endangered.
Oh, definitely. It's a two-way street, because you had the lack of the pollinators, and then you had the lack of what they call the host plants. These pollinator used to propagate. For instance, one that had become very rare is the leaf-wing butterfly, which is a beautiful butterfly that the wings just look like dry leaf, and the main habitat is pine rockland, and it used the wild croton as a host plant, and you only find that on rock pineland, a rocky pineland, and most of the rocky pinelands are gone. So you get into a situation like that, and that's what happened. You don't have enough of the host plant, and of course, you don't have enough of the host plant, then you don't have enough of the pollinator.
Leonardo, and that is fascinating because I know that for you, for the group, being scientifically accurate, it's so important. And I remember the first exhibition that we had for the group, Tamiami Trail, is really interesting to highlight the fauna and flora that are also going extinct. So for my next question, I would love to ask Margie, why are native plants important?
Thank you, Juliana. Native plants are so important to us. Leo hit on a couple of the key points. We need the insects and the plants to be native in order for pollination to take place. And we are destroying a lot of our native habitat. And it's something that we can do is use native plants in our own landscape. Native plants use less water. And once they're established, you really don't need to water them anymore. They don't require pesticides or herbicides or fertilizer. They're adjusted already to the land that we have. And they're beautiful. I mean, that's what we're trying to show in this exhibit, is that once you stop and take a look and look at the flower and look at the different parts, it's a beautiful way to appreciate our natural surroundings.
And so what I look at even online, when I see at the different exhibitions that you put together, I can tell that you're doing a lot of research about your exhibitions. So why is it important for the group to share this information?
It is so important for us to get this message across of the link between us humans and nature. And we all feel very strongly about it. And that's why the pollination exhibit is so exciting, because this is one little process that we have in nature that connects us back into nature. And, especially right now with COVID, getting back into nature, it helps us de-stress. We might find some peace and enjoy the beauty. And if we can show this in a beautiful way to people, if they can be inspired and awed in the way that we are, this is our challenge, they will pay more attention to nature and what's going on around them.
So, Donna, I
Yes.
know from different conversations with other members that you're in charge of the website. So you're a key member in disseminating this information. You're also one of the founding members. So can you share with us how can people get involved with the organization? I know that you're artists, but I believe that you also do work with the community. So can you share with us more about that?
Sure. Many of our members do regularly volunteer, especially in children's programs, because we think if we can stimulate this kind of interest in young people, it will go further in their families and they'll tell their parents, and actually it serves as a way of sharing time with their parents. We can get them on board, thinking that this is an interesting thing. We also have them, we do a lot of just workshops in drawing and things like that kind of bring the kids into observing nature, and it begins to kind of leak out into other areas of their life. If they're observing nature, they start to just like pay attention to what's going on around them a little bit more too.
What I find really interesting, and I'm going to make this question is for the three of you. I want to know how y'all got started with being a botanical artist. I understand that it's not just drawing a flower or drawing, but it has to be very accurate, scientifically accurate. So it's a field that requires a certain determination and skill. So I'm just curious to find out about you. So how about you, Donna? How did you get started?
I was actually a painter, and I was making a lot of paintings about plants, but the plants that I was painting were very specific plants. So I thought, well, if I'm painting about specific plants, I want my audience to actually relate to what plants I'm doing, so that if I painted a tobacco plant, I wanted someone to say, oh, that's a tobacco plant. The stories that are around that tobacco plant are relevant. So along with my regular art training, I decided to study botanical illustration just to kind of make my paintings a little more realistic when it came to the plant world. And then later, I decided I was able to teach botanical illustration, and I introduced a world of people into botanical art.
Yeah, there have been testimonials saying that you were key in their training and
Good.
becoming botanical artists. That's wonderful. When you teach, how do you teach, and has this affected how you teach nowadays with COVID?
Well, I taught at Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden, which is where all of us pretty much met. And I retired from that position last year because I wanted to spend more time actually doing painting and not so much teaching. And now I'm going to be teaching a regular painting course for Florida International University, but it's regular painting, oils, acrylics. And that will be on Zoom as well. So I'm just getting used to this technology myself. We'll see how it all goes.
We all are getting used to. So Leo, how did you get started? What was the thing that made you connect with botanical art?
Well, originally had to do what I grew up. Of course, I was born in Cuba. My family business used to be outside of town, Santiago, by the shoreline. And as I grew up, while my brother did the typical Cuban thing of playing baseball, I would be walking the shoreline, and to me, there was nothing more fascinating than turning rocks over and see what kind of life, was living under the rocks and so forth. So at one time, this lady that was a friend of the family, she was a plein air painting. She came to our place to do landscape painting at seascape, and I was just fascinated that, you could grab brush and painting and create something. So since that time, I was very interested of painting. And then when I moved to the U.S. and for the first time ever in high school here, I had an art class. So I decided, okay, I want to study art. So I moved to New York, and I went to art school in New York and worked in the textile industry. But then after I got married and I moved back to Florida, it was back in 1974, I realized that there just wasn't a field in South Florida at the time to make a living. So I went back to school and studied horticulture. So then I got a big introduction into plants. So because of my paintings, I always like to do natural subject, butterfly, birds, and so forth. I realized that part of that was, the background. And of course, the background is plant. So when the chance came to take the class at Fairchild, I said, oh, wow, botanical illustration, this is perfect. And like Donna said, myself and this group of people, we kept taking the class over and over and over, and we realized that really it wasn't so much at the time, that it wasn't so much at the instruction of just being together in this common interest. So that's how it developed, and that's how we end up as a tropical botanic artist.
That's great. So pretty much you just named the group. You were already a group taking classes, and then you just put a name to your group and continue working. That's fascinating. Margie, do you want to share your story of how did you become a tropical botanical artist?
Sure, Juliana. I started out from early childhood, much like Leo, combing the beaches. I was in the forest and playing in the woods behind our house, and family camping trips, and my grandparents had big gardens and they showed me how to garden. I remember digging up peanuts and seeing how they grew. And art was my favorite subject in school. So my pictures from my drawings from then are all full of nature scenes. And then after elementary school, there was no more art. So I studied the science of nature. And after a 30-year career with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, living and working abroad, I started thinking about retirement. And it brought me right back to my childhood and how much I liked art. And lo and behold, I started taking drawing at Fairchild. And the first thing I needed to do was draw some masking tape, just a roll of masking tape. And I couldn't. And I was a little surprised and scared. But lo and behold, we had a wonderful teacher, Helen Burgess. She just was incredible. I got through that. And the next class I saw was in painting, botanical illustration by, guess who? Donna Torres. And what a wonderful teacher. And, just not only bringing us to botanical illustration, but bringing us together as a group. So I just, have a lot of thanks for Donna. I've had some other teachers as well, but Donna is the key.
So what I like about your stories is that you're all the embodiment of the perfect match between science and art. And it's very, very inspiring. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me today, for sharing your thoughts, and for planning this exhibition, Pollinators, that we have at Bay Contemporary Art.